Welcome back to the Artefactors Union. I am your host and foreman, Douglas Scoundrels, and today we are assembling the Here Lies Ellipsis box for the Explorers faction, the Seeker keyword. Box contains a lot of dead things. One, the Grave Goo, this purpley gooey gentleman here, and then 3 Moorwraiths, these being 2 of them. Just some grave dirt, animated grave dirt, more or less. Anyways, that's our artwork. Renders on the back, our grave goo, and then the 3 Moorwraiths. Alright, let's look at the sprue. Here's our sprue. We've got the grave goo up here, mostly large body, and then some additional bits all attached to it. Let's try not to smack the camera, Doug. And then our Moorwraiths taking up quite a bit of space on the sprue. Looks like we've got like 9 bits for A, and then 10 bits for B, and then C being the odd one out with only like 7, I think. But looks like we have a decent amount of bits. Hopefully this won't be too difficult, though. Let's look at our instructions for the grave goo first, and then go over assembly order. Alright, as far as assembly order goes, we will grab the 2 halves of the body, and then we'll do everything around the base, which would be like D5, and then all 3 of these guys over here, D3, D2, and D1. Once we're done with that, we can do his little arms, which are these 2, and finish off with his little skull face. So, let's grab D4 and D6 and begin from there. Here is D4, the one without the little noodly thing on top. Let's add D6 onto it. Alright, here is our main body. Next, we'll grab D5? D5, which is the shovel, and it is going to attach right here on this connection point. Okay. There's that. Make sure it's flat on the bottom. Next is going to be D1, the one tentacle with like a ball on top of it, on the tip. That's going to go right there. Laugh. Sorry, that's the one that's thicker on the base, too. I realize now there are 2 with balls on the end. Don't laugh. All right, let's turn it around. And right here is going to be D3. I believe it is. Yep, D3. Right there. Now that's in place. I made a dumb mistake, so I'm going to point that out now. You see this lovely handle? You can kind of notice the break there already. Do this bit last. Do this bit last because of that very flimsy shovel handle, so that you can get it on the base, and the base will give it a little bit of protection, so you're less likely to just immediately snap it off. But dummy, stupid me. All right, D2 is our last basing one, and that you can barely see. It's going to fit right there. That certainly is a weird connection point, but I would just say as long as you got the bottom flush, it's going to be good enough. Definitely matches the instructions, and I can't see any other spot where it's going to go, so I'm guessing that's where it's supposed to be. It just looks real weird and out of place. Okay, now let's get to his flappy little arms. First up is going to be... I lost my sprue. One sec. Alright, D8 is going to be right here, and then D9 will be right up here. Alright, our first little flappy arm. D8 is done. Let's do D9. The other little flappy arm thing. Okay, last but not least, D7, our drippy skull. Okay, he's gross. Let's put him on a base. Oh, he was also done. The grave goo is completed. Fairly simple model. Didn't have any trouble except for that the handle on the shovel, which is just my fault for doing it so early, and that one oddball bit on its back that looks like it's just sort of tacked on there. I'm still not entirely sure if that's in there correctly or not, but that's the best way I could get it to fit. So outside of that concern, it should be good. Very gooey boy. Alright, let's move on to the minions. Alright, our Moorwraiths are split a little strangely on the sprue. Here is a... Also, they are lettered correctly compared to the instructions, which I'll show you after we get to the splits real quick. But the different split between A and B is right along here on this curvy line. And the difference between B and C actually goes in here and up this way. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 for C, and everything else is in B. But let's go ahead and look at the instructions and get started on Morith A. For our first Moorwraith, we're going to grab A4, and add A7 to it, followed by A6. I think it attaches to both, but definitely A7, and then the base, little basing part, A1. After that, A2 I think can attach to A7. A3 is going to go somewhere on the body, and we'll finish up by combining A5 and A8 and adding them to the top. This very well might change. It's a little bit confusing of instructions, so we'll just play it by ear. Alright, grab A4 and then A7. Here's A4. A7 is going to fit slightly weirdly on the bottom here, but it will connect to the bottom. Yeah, so this is what we're looking at. Yeah, really check the bottom. That's how you're going to align it correctly. But this is how it looks. So I'm going to glue now. Okay. That's what it looks like from the back. And now A6 is going to attach right here. Okay, I didn't realize it covered up the entire connection point back here, but it did. It wraps nicely around A7. But now we can finagle A1 into there, which should be attached to this part as well as the base. The rest of the base. Right, that looks pretty good. Okay, next is going to be A2, which is pieces of wood or vine or whatever, and that's going to glue in here, and I think it's going to move up this way, but we'll see. That bit, again, being A2. Okay, it also attaches back here, too. So, here and here. Okay. Next, our little tree bush thing, that is A3, is going to connect right here in this triangular connection point. Okay. Fits on there fairly sturdily, despite it being a kind of a small connection point. But anyways, I only have 2 bits left, so let's grab A5, which is sort of the head to face thing, and then we'll attach up here. There is A5. And our last bit, A8, is just going to cover up this whole hole. Voila. First Moorwraith is done. Our first Moorwraith is done. Fairly simple model. Looked like it was going to be harder than it actually ended up being. Hardest part would maybe be the little tiny tree on its backside, just because that's a smaller connection point. But yeah, I'm really stretching for that. It's a lot easier than I was assuming it would be, which makes me happy. Right, I don't think I gave it a name. We're going to call this one, Luss. We're going to call it Luss. L-O-E-S-S. Okay, let's move on. Our next Moorwraith, we'll begin by grabbing B6, the base, adding B4, which is another part of the base. Then we'll actually start on the body, so we'll grab B1, add that to that, combine B5 and B7, see if we need to add the other bits to it, because it appears that B2 might attach to it, and B8 attaches to B2, and B9 might attach to it, and this also attaches. But anyways, once we have these two combined, we'll figure out if we can add everything to it and then add it on top of the body, or if we need to add these onto the body first. So, start with B6, grab B4, and then B1. As B4, B6 is just going to attach right here. Got those two mixed up. I'm holding on to B6. B4 is the tall pillar. Okay. There's how it's supposed to look. There's our bottom. B1 is next, the body, and it's got 3 points of connection. One of the legs will end up here, one of the legs will end up here, and this will sort of glue into its back. Okay. That's good. Now let's go ahead and set them down, and first clip out B7 and B5. Here's B5, B7 will just glue on this triangular area. There we be. Nice hollowed out area behind this grate. Let's just go ahead and add it to the body now. Just gonna fit something like that. Okay. There we be. Let's go ahead and get started on the left arm, which will be B2 first, which will just glue right in there. Fit in just fine. Next is going to be the wheel, which is B8. That should attach right there on the wrist, and probably also connects to this connection point there. Yep, there we go. There's the wrist connection point and the tooth that goes on the forearm. Okay, he's got a little wheel shield. Next is going to be the peg that fits right in there, which is B3. So go ahead and add that now. I don't think there's a particular way to guarantee the orientation. Just try and match the render. Notice that this spiky part is more on the bottom than on the top. Anyways, let's just jam that signpost into his back, which probably right there, but I'll double check. B9 is going to go in there, just again make it match the render as far as orientation. There we go. And last, B10 is going to fit right in here. Alright, there we go. He's all done. Put him on a base. Our second Moorwraith is done. We're going to call this guy Clay. Hardest part for him was the two bits that had the small connection points, the peg on the wheel, and then the signpost sticking out of his back. And that's just because you can't really get orientation from the connection point, but you just got to reference the render and you'll be fine. So that's it for him. Let's finish this out. Our third and final Moorwraith. Let's start by grabbing C3, adding it to some letter. Actually, don't say C5. There we go. And then adding C4 onto that. And then we'll just work our way up from the bottom. We'll add this skeletal arm near kind of the base, this flamey grate thing on its back, the tombstone on its back, and then we'll go ahead and finish with this little skeletal arm, which appears to be holding its like pipe. The pipe right here. Anyways, C2, C5, and C4. All right, here's C3. Let's turn it over and add C5 on the back. There we go. And now C4 in that big hole. There we go. All right. Let's start at the bottom. C1, which is actually a leg, not an arm. You can kind of see the bend in it. So it'll fit in there. Okay, that's the leg. Next will be sort of flamey grate bit, C7. It's going to fit on this round spot right here. All right. Cool. Second to last bit, C2, going to fit right along there. There is the tombstone on his back. Okay, last bit. I thought it was an arm, but it is in fact some kind of bow tie. It'll attach right here, go under the neck, and then there's a little connection point right there that it should attach to. There we go. He's all done. Oops. Put him on a base. Our third Moorwraith is done. We're going to call this one Loam. The hardest part for him was the bow tie around the neck, and the leg was also just a little fiddly, so I think those two are tied, the skeleton leg. Everything else, simple, and not a lot to complain about with 7 bits anyways. So let's look at the whole box now. The Here Lies box is done, containing 1 grave goo and 3 Moorwraiths. Overall, a fairly simple box, despite it being kind of weird with how it's just a random bunch of stuff slapped together to make sort of a body shape for the Moorwraiths, and the grave goo just being goo shaped. But overall, wouldn't complain too much about it. Hardest parts of the models would maybe be the 1 grave goo bit on its back. That was just real weird to put in there, or maybe the tiny bits on the 3rd Moorwraith. I'm kind of reaching here for difficulty. Nothing too hard. So I would say you're good to go. Shouldn't have too much of a trouble. But I have been your foreman, Douglas Scoundrels, helping you build a better Malifaux. Have a good night.